I have the honor to present to you His Excellency, President Roxas of the Philippines.
Mr. Chairman, United States High Commissioner McNutt, Americans, Filipinos, nationals of the same country, allow me to address you today as fellow Americans, for the American flag still waves over the Philippines. I feel, I have always felt, that in San Francisco, I'm not far from home. San Francisco has always seemed to me much closer to the Philippines than is indicated by geographical measure. San Francisco is the metropolis of the Pacific, the true crossroads of the world west of the Mississippi River. I do not mean to outdo your Chamber of Commerce, nor am I quoting from any of its pamphlets. I am merely reporting the impression I have always gotten when I have come through here, and I've been through the city a great number of times in past years. Here, America extends her best countenance to the Pacific, and here I always feel that I am in a neighboring and not so much in a distant land. Here I see the currents of the Orient as they flow into the great American stream of commerce and culture. San Francisco is the epitome of Western pioneer America, exhibiting in this city the expanse, the hospitality, and the beauty of all your great land. In San Francisco, we Filipinos have always felt, even when no other ear was receptive to our problems, that we could get an interested and sympathetic hearing. Elsewhere in the United States today, the interest in the Philippines has been largely born of war. But even late born, that interest is a thriving one today. I found it everywhere, among your humblest citizens, as well as among your greatest leaders. Our plight and our welfare as a people are now of deep concern to you. For that, I am humbly and fervently grateful. In that concern, we see our salvation. Despite the destructive waste of war in the Philippines, we are not without resources, basic resources. The war has not stolen our gold, chrome, manganese, and iron deposits, nor our coconut and hemp lands, nor our deep timbered forests, nor the essential richness of our soil. Our people, in their millions, are still available to till the land, to cut the timbers, to dig the mines, to engage in trade and commerce. That much we have. What we lack today, as the result of war, is not substance, but form. Not work, but the tools with which to work. We have potential produce and potential manufactures, but no machines. Some crops, but no trucks or ships in which to move them. Many potential enterprises, but no capital with which to finance them, and no coherent plan on which to organize them. As we in the Philippines gaze upon the ruins and devastation of our land, as we look upon the shattered hulks of our buildings, and upon the gathered rubble of what was once our cities, we are naturally seized with some dismay. How many years will it take, some of my countrymen ask, for us to rebuild what it took these centuries to erect? Does it not look hopeless? Will we ever succeed? How can we undertake political independence, possessing as we do only the battered remains of an economy, homeless as we are, and hungry? There are not many of faint heart in the Philippines, I assure you. Courage is one of the proudest virtues of the Filipinos. There are not many, I doubt if there are any today, who fear that we will succeed in maintaining our independent existence and in restoring economic life and health to our country. But for the feeling of assurance which we have, thanks must go to the United States of America. Were it not for the benevolent policy and attitude of America and Americans, we would be lost indeed. But, of course, that is like saying that were it not for San Francisco Bay, this city would be sadly handicapped. Whereas the fact is that if it were not for the Bay, there would probably be no San Francisco. Thus, if it were not for the benevolent policy of the United States, there would probably be no Philippine Republic in the first place. The Philippine nation is a nation and is a democracy, largely because of the United States. Why do you suppose that the Filipinos were loyal to the United States throughout 3 years of the greatest trial that any people in any age have ever been called upon to face? The Japanese offered us independence, although we knew that the very offer was a travesty on the word. Our loyalty was not a result of calculation. It was Our loyalty was not a product of logic. It was a faith and a conviction that the great nation which had taught us political democracy, which had guided us long and far on the road to freedom and national dignity, was a nation to whom we owed a basic allegiance in her great hour of crisis. It was as axiomatic to us as faith itself that we could not betray America without betraying the Philippines too. Because the ideals of Philippine patriotism are identical with the ideals of American patriotism. It was senseless, and the Japanese should have realized it, to ask Filipinos to forget their loyalty and faith in America and shift their loyalty and faith to Japan. The Filipino, guided by 47 years of happy association with America, holds an unshakable conviction that the democratic way of life is a fundamental good in itself, and that any denial of democracy is a denial of virtue, a denial even of God. To the Filipino, condemnation of America as such is condemnation of democracy. A condemnation of democracy is blasphemy to us. It is hard for me to picture, without seeming to fawn, how deep in the Philippines runs the current of faith in your institutions, in your way of life, and in your country. Some of my countrymen, because of limited education perhaps, lack a profound understanding of all the implications of democracy and democratic institutions. But what they lack in factual knowledge, they compensate for in strength of conviction. Fire and sword could not change that conviction, nor did it.